Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about another Canadian rum, a white rum called the Corsairs, done by Minhas Distillery. Now, we've talked about Carroll's rums before, and before that, we have actually talked about Romero Distillery as well. Both of them are Alberta based, and there are others like Highwood Distilleries that act as contract distillers for yet other brands. One of the things I wanted to point out to you by talking about this one is exactly how bad this one is when compared about the sort of work that these other distilleries sometimes do, especially Carroll's and Romero, which I think are really quite spectacular in their own way. Um, Perhaps I should ask for a little bit more respect to be given by a small outfit that is run by a second generation immigrant, a lady called Manjit Minhas, who started this thing off in the late 1990s, I think it was 1999, when she sold her car. She was actually an engineer, and she sold her car to raise finance to start her company with her brother, which is particularly strange when you consider that her father had run a chain of very successful liquor stores in Saskatchewan and Alberta. And obviously that wasn't going to work. So she basically sold her car and she started this little company, and it's still going on quite strong. They originally bought a small distillery in Wisconsin in the United States. Then they ended up being so successful with whatever it is they were making there that they bought a brewery in Alberta, which is still in existence, to which post 2002, I think they bought that in 2002, and afterwards they shoehorned some distillery apparatus into it, and now they've become something of a full service provider where they do third party contract work. They make their own rums. They do a rum called the Caribbean rum for the co-op chain of grocery stores and so on. But in spite of all this really nice second generation success story that they've become, the truth of the matter is that they've got nowhere close to issuing anything sort of like what Carroll's or the other one have done, and they inhabit the low end with what one assumes is pride, because I can't think of any reason why they would make a rum this bad. And yet for $25, you'd think that you're getting a steal. I mean, if you look at the label of the Corsairs, right, you'd think that it's kind of a steal. The proof is rated at 44.9%, which is unusual for white rum here, and it's called a product of Barbados, which is nice and sure to excite some interest. It's very clear, it's very white. You know, it's intriguing. So is there hope for us here? No, not at all. And this is where details and knowing what you're looking for when you read a label like this is important and actually matters. So what is the source of the distillate, which is not told? Is it aged or unaged? We're not told. Which distillery in Barbados made it? What kind of still? You see how all this adds up to even more questions that none of the information publicly available answers, even on their website, which isn't very good. They don't tell you anything like that. I did contact them before about this when I was talking about the co-op Caribbean rum. They gave me absolutely bupkis. So it's not publicly available, and I don't know whether that's a matter of indifference or an intentional oversight and or willful ignorance, because the masses will buy what we sell, and if it's cheap enough, then they're just going to buy it irrespective. Well, the cynic in me can't entirely shake the belief that the production info is withheld just so not to draw attention to the fact that the rum is a bottom feeder. And the bottom line for me is that the mediocrity it displays so proudly is somewhat breathtaking. Now, I've had this rum on the go for something like 3 hours. Because I kept going back for it. I couldn't believe that something that was displayed this way could actually be as bad as it is. But yeah, no. So nose, let's take a look at that. Yeah, there's hardly any nose of mention. 44.9%. So what are you getting? You're getting a little sweetness. You're getting ethanol fumes, a fart of icing sugar, maybe some pastry, but far more paint stripper than plastic than can possibly be healthy. And all of this is contained in a mishmash of melded aromas that clash and bite at each other so much that it defeats even me. And, my nose isn't entirely bad. Plus, it's so bloody light, 44.9%, and you're basically getting nothing out of it. And it doesn't stop there. When I taste it, it makes me wonder why they just didn't bottle pure ethanol and just dilute it down with water to the required strength, because there is almost nothing here. It involves doing nothing, feeling nothing, on the road to nowhere. It tastes of anything. It's vanilla water mixed with a little white sugar, alcohol, and that's it. There's no spices, no fruits, no flowers, pastries, cardboard, wood, nothing. By the time I got to this point in my tasting, after the 3 hour mark, I just kind of said I would have been happy with some kind of gangrenous meat profile of a badly made Tekka mixed with a lethal dose of paint in it. But, there just isn't anything here, and there's no finish of any kind to speak of. There's just nothing here. So that's the tasting notes, right? And I'm going to give it a fairly contemptuous score, but let me talk a little bit more about it. So on the basis of this tasting and a little bit of experience, I can say most likely, based on what research I've managed to do, that it is from word. I think Mount Gay Distillate would have been a little bit more expensive. St. Nick's is too small and it just doesn't export that way. And Richard Seal of Foursquare did tell me when I was doing my original research on this that he had refused to sell to Minhas at the time because the price they offered for what he was supplying was too low. My real fear actually is that this is only partially Barbados, and then it's been mixed in with some kind of neutral alcohol or whatever it is from the Wisconsin distillery or the Alberta one that they own. But there's no way to know because they're not answering any questions and they don't put it up in their website. So what exactly have you got to go on, right? Now, I do believe it's a column still product. No pot still would, condescend to being anything this bad. And it's probably been aged very lightly and then filtered to white, because there's no other way you would get that vanilla taste or anything else. And I think it's so bland, it had to be filtered. So again, a bit of an assumption on my part, but I think it's reasonable. And quite frankly, rums like this make me despair, because what hope is there when products so bland can be made and bought? I mean, in the Bible, in Hebrews, it talks about faith being the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. I like that quote a lot. But this travesty here has neither substance to excite faith or hope, and nor does it give any evidence of anything except the desire to make money by selling to the lowest common denominator. And it belongs to that subclass of cheap tipple that if you had the slightest interest in drinking decent liquor, just leave it where it is, or better yet, pour it down the drain if you made the mistake of buying it. Give it to me so I can talk about it some more. All right, so if you want to know why I'm so pissy about this kind of thing, it's because I think better can be done. So many of these white rums like this one are made with indifference or even cynicism, and they make Bacardi Superior seem like a positively top-of-the-line rum in comparison. Now, honestly, you could call me an elitist snob who drinks nothing but high-end expensive rums. I have no truck with the average rummy and who has no handle on the pulse of the budget-conscious working-class bros out there. But let me explain. Such rums, yes, they're dirt cheap. Yes, they give you an alcohol shot that you can put into your mix and you can just reliably get hammered. That's part of the selling point. I simply argue that it's a race to the bottom that serves no useful purpose, even if all you want to do is get loaded on a slim or non-existent budget. On occasion, I do that myself. So trust me, yeah, I get it. But if that's all you're after, why even bother? Getting an even cheaper vodka works just as well, and you probably get more bang for your buck on that one. The problem with these androgynous, monotonous, tedious, taste-lacking cocktail fodders is that to all intents and purposes, they are vodkas. So what's the point of sullying the reputation of rum by making something like this? I mean, rum has such an incredible variety, whether it's whites or aged or uber aged or premium rums or whatever, that you can do better. And if you're trying to tell me that, well, we make what sells, but if all you're selling is what you're making, then the audience that you're after has no choice to expand their own horizons or get anything better. And if this is all we can afford, whether we're young or new destitute students or minimum wage worker bees struggling to make rent, well, then our entire conception of what rum is damaged and sullied by such stuff. And we turn away to other things, and only later in our lives, when we have some disposable income, do we realize that there was always better out there. And it's just that the companies weren't making it because they thought that this was what we needed. So I'm just saying, there's better out there. Go out there, look for it, spend a few extra dollars, go up to $30 if you have to, spare yourself the embarrassment of this nonsense, let it gather dust and traumatize innocent reviewers like me who have to try it so that you don't have to. So that's my rant for today. And I'm sorry that the rum is so bad, but that's just the facts of life. I am going to score this 60. Now, like Serge Valentin's 20-point score on some other stuff that he's done, it's sort of like a mark of contempt as opposed to a serious score. If I really had to score it, I'd probably give it about 7 to maybe 68, 69 points or something like that. But 60 is where I'm going to put it just to express my annoyance with this substandard piece of crap. That's it for today. Thanks very much for listening. And I know it's a bit long, but I do appreciate your being here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.